One of the things I'm really big on is you can't abdicate a role. So a lot of people get frustrated. They're trying to control everything, and then they find somebody to do it and they just abdicate. They just dump the job on that person and go, now it's being done. You've got to delegate properly. And that's part of what we do in the Profit Freedom Machine is look at how do you delegate something properly so that the person's going to do it the way that you expect it to be done because you've communicated that with them properly. And depending upon the person you're working with, how you communicate that changes.
Welcome back. It's Pat Mesede's best-selling author podcast, and we are here with a couple of best-selling authors, Bram Lagrou and Alan Short. Bram Lagrou is a business strategist and coach who transforms businesses, and Alan Short is the global business coach who turned his family business, Fire and Emergency Services SA, into a 20-staff company that runs virtually without him. And they both host retreats for top leaders to run balanced, thriving businesses to enjoy the ultimate blend of time, money, and freedom. And we have two websites to mention. We have globalbusinesscoaching.com.au, which is Alan's website, and we have bramlagrou.com. That's BRAMLAGROU.com. And we're going to be talking about some fun adventures, right? Both of you were published in the Live with Purpose book, along with Pat Mesede, a couple of business coaches. So glad to have you. Glad to be having this conversation.
Thanks for having us, Robert.
Likewise, and mate, you make it sound so good.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? It's like when you turn your resume in, you put your best foot forward, you say, hey, here's what I've accomplished. I make no apologies. I'm proud of it. So I introduced both of you, but what did I leave out? What are you currently passionate, fired up about? What's your current focus?
Go for it, mate.
Okay, well, look, Alan and I, we decided to partner up on a program called Profit Freedom Machine, and it's basically designed for business owners that have, let's say, between 4 and 20 staff, want to really make that into a machine that produces profit and creates time so that they can have the life they want rather than being enslaved to a business that keeps them in there and potentially stuck short on money, right? So we love the freedom. You can live well like Alan and I do all the time. We fly around, we cruise around the world. We sometimes take people with us. And, you need time, you need money. That's when the freedom really kicks in.
Wonderful. I love it. And, I think that this is really important because there's the need to have some kind of a structure, right? Like we all have some amount of creativity and randomness and focus and ideas and motivation, but without having that structure in place, it's kind of, you're rolling the dice, right? You're leaving it up to chance. And we always hear about these problems that can happen even with some of these small companies you're mentioning, right? 4 to 20 employees. Sometimes there might be like toxic communication or bad leadership. So can you tell us about why companies need to have Profit Freedom Machine and how do they know if their company is a good fit for this system?
Yeah, there's two main reasons that most people come to us. One of those is that they are making sales, but they're not making any money. We hear a lot of business owners going, yeah, I'm making really good sales. And we ask the question, are you really financially fit? Are you making profit every day? Are you actually paying yourself an above market rate? And does it work without you? Because if it doesn't, and you don't know it, and a lot of business owners are just in the weeds working for a below market salary. The other thing we see is a lot of people are the other way around where they just can't make sales. They can't get inquiries, and when they do get inquiries, they can't close those inquiries. And that's the foundation. If you can get sales and make those sales profitable, you can then talk about the rest of it, which is building a team to deliver on those things.
Great, well said.
And that can be a scary place to be, right? Like many business owners, they want to have freedom, but then they end up building themselves a new job, and even worse, it's unreliable and it pays low, and they're working for a crazy boss, which is themselves. And so, but then you hear about these businesses that really have their numbers dialed in, right? They know how things are going. They can do the forecasting, and they have that amount of predictability to kind of free them up to do what we all wanted to do in the first place, which is to be the visionary and to be the dreamer and think about next steps and do the publicity, the fun stuff, right? Not just the grinding. And so you mentioned these two scenarios that either they're having trouble making sales or they all are making sales, but like some things need to be reconfigured. They need to have this better team in place that way that they can have this above market rate, and that it also can run without them. And so tell us about this. What kind of transformation do you provide? Like, I imagine that maybe you have some struggling business owners that come to you and you go and like rework things and they end up, way better than where they started. So tell me about some success stories, case studies.
All right. Well, look, we've worked with many business owners and their teams over the years. And so success stories, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start, because some people, they might have been really enslaved and work 17 hours a day, 6 days a week, very little time for, let's say, looking after themselves in terms of fitness, let alone time with the family and so on. I've seen people then suddenly saying, Bram, now that we started working together, I actually have been able to trim it back to 6 hours a day, and I spend a lot more time with my family. You got your golf stories with certain people. I mean, you can maybe throw in on there as well.
Yeah, we worked with a lawyer who, lawyers typically work a lot of hours and don't get freedom from being in the office. Working with us, he was able to work from home one day a week and play golf once or twice a week. So he was able to develop that freedom to be able to pursue one of his hobbies that he wanted to, and still, I think 500% increase in business at the same time. So increased business and increased freedom and increased profitability at the same time. Another example would be one of our property managers that we worked with. She was able to effectively semi-retire and still get paid the same amount of money from a business, while the business was able to operate effectively without her daily focus.
Strong results for sure.
Well, yeah, and when you're mentioning about this change that has to occur, what comes to mind is that many times it has to get worse before it gets better, right? Maybe this business owner is physically out of shape and has to begin maybe doing the painful decision of making time to exercise, get outside in the morning, meditate, do all these things, because the alternative is just like the continued slow decline. So something drastic needs to happen. And I also imagine that there might be a little bit of a mental problem of a business owner being a control freak, not wanting to give up, right? Saying like, well, hey, I've made it this far. And then people like you would say, well, you made it this far, but you're also currently holding back your speed and your progress. And you need to give up a little bit of that control, and you need to hire some people on your team. So, I mean, what's that like? Is there anything to remark about just the pain of making these decisions that just need to be made, but they haven't made it yet because they haven't met you, and with your help it gets made, but it's sometimes it's so difficult, isn't it?
But is there really control freaks?
Yeah, that's right. You're at least looking at one of them here. One of the things I'm really big on is you can't abdicate a role. So a lot of people get frustrated. They're trying to control everything, and then they find somebody to do it and they just abdicate. They just dump the job on that person and go, now it's being done. You've got to delegate properly. And that's part of what we do in the Profit Freedom Machine, is look at how do you delegate something properly so that the person's going to do it the way that you expect it to be done, because you've communicated that with them properly. And depending upon the person you're working with, how you communicate that changes.
That's right. I think the other one with the control freaks is that they sometimes are so controlling that it stifles staff, which means those staff get up. Well, they're experts. They were hired to do a job. They don't feel that they can do it. So there's a revolving door of people coming and going. And that, of course, costs the business big time, because you need to recruit them again. You need to onboard him again. You need to train him up. You need to coach them. You need to mentor them, all of that. And that takes time and money. And typically small businesses in the sorts of ranges that we mentioned haven't got that discretionary budget and time lying around. So it's very, very painful. So that's just another example.
And you're giving me some flashbacks of some corporate America employee kind of days with this revolving door, where you end up where someone has kind of done half of a task and you go and you try to do it, and then they like correct you and they kind of get in your way. And then with the revolving door, there's always a mess to clean up, right? There's always like someone attempted to create this system or build this automation or do this repeat task many different times, and you almost feel like an archaeologist, like looking back at all the attempts, and then it's such a mess, such a problem. And so I like this idea. Yeah, there's just layers on top of layers. And so this idea that you're mentioning here of like the mentorship and delegating properly, and what comes to mind there is like the need to have like patience and leadership and kind of like follow through and letting them go out there and make the mistakes, but also kind of showing them on a repeat basis. But that's just the randomness that comes to mind. And so when you're mentioning about delegating properly, like what does that mean? Like why don't people do it, and what's the proper way to do it?
I think one of the problems is people expect you employ somebody and you're going to spend less time, where to delegate properly actually costs you personally more time than if you did the job initially, because you need to have that really good foundation and train them properly into how to do it. So it costs you more time to start off with. And then once you build their capabilities, that's when you start to get a saving in your time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing,
a powerful insight. Yeah. It's like riding a bicycle versus driving a car, right? Like at first there's upfront costs. You have to fill the car with gas. You have to make sure all these things are working. But then once you get past the initial growing pain, once you have the person trained and working, then you have greater scale and greater possibilities. Yeah. And so, so we mentioned a couple of ideas and concepts here, but like, do you think, is there an area of business that is not really like talked about enough? Like, do you see these like repeat problems with these struggling business owners, and you're just like, man, this particular topic needs more awareness and attention? Anything come to mind as far as like the unspoken, quiet problems that we need to discuss?
If I could just suggest this one. So we came up with a concept called the success diamond. And a business, you should see a business, any business, whether it's, in the starting blocks or it's already like really well into on a pathway of development, a decade or whatever in, there's 5 elements that business really should be held accountable for, or basically benchmarked against. And if you start thinking about like a business as a potential diamond in the rough, right? It doesn't look really pretty. You're not going to sell it in a jewelry shop as part of a ring or earrings or a nice necklace or something. It's got to actually be really polished and trimmed and really precisely cut to make the light perfectly reflect on it so that it's worth the money and that people really see it as an inviolable thing. Well, the question then is, if you start looking at a business from a diamond's perspective, is it still a diamond in the rough? Not quite ready yet for sale, to be attractive, to have a strong brand, to be highly profitable and the likes? If not, well, then you got your 5 angles to have a look at. One of which is having a top sales process. 2 is financial fitness. Another one is time productivity for everyone, not just the business owner. The other one is roadmap. And then there's one more.
Organized by design. So having a business that's organized, that's designed to be organized rather than just random.
See, if you look at it from that side, every business owner should really kind of assess those 5 aspects, because typically what brought them to where they are today is where they really were good, but it might be 1 or 2 facets out of the 5. And to have a really strong performing business, you need all 5 equally well, beautifully trimmed back and cut so that it is a diamond ready to shine, that is worth a lot and is highly attractive.
Wonderful. And I love the diamond metaphor, because what you think of that is that it's like like you said, it's the diamond in the rough. Like the raw materials are there. It's just the business needs to be shaped. And if anything, like some amounts need to be cut away. It's not necessarily like adding to it, just like trim the fat. And in order to get this business to a point where it's sellable, where the financials are clean, or it's even something where it just, even if you don't sell it, it's something that's runs a lot more smoothly, right? And where I know that both of you are big on this idea of being able to step away from the business where it runs without you, which is like, man, that is the ultimate goal for so many business owners. And so they need to apply this success diamond in order to get the business to that place. And so out of some of these elements that you mentioned, is there one of the 5 that like get both of you particularly excited?
My one's the the financial fitness. I get really excited because most business owners are not numbers people. So how do we simplify the numbers so that somebody who doesn't like numbers can actually make sure their business is profitable on a daily basis?
That's it. Look,
And how do we do that? Because like you said, some people like hate numbers, but then there's all this technology available, right? There's like the dashboards and the KPIs and like beautiful colors and icons. And like there's ways to make the numbers fun for the rest of us, right?
There is definitely ways, but it's also simplifying it. A lot of you might remember if you've your parents back in the day when you got paid by cash. Some parents did the daily budget or the weekly budget using envelopes where you'd put money into different envelopes. So you'd have an envelope for your school fees, an envelope for groceries, an envelope for the mortgage, an envelope for paying the bills, and you would pay from what was in each one of those. Now that it's all electronic, we don't have the ability to be able to do that. So we have a system that we've refined that enables you to do that using electronic banking. So where you effectively create different bank accounts.
Well, very cool. And can you unpack that a little bit in the remaining time we have left? Like, what are the bank accounts that need to be set up?
So profit, making sure that you're putting money away for tax because that's not your money. You need to be making sure that that's put away for tax. One for making sure that you get paid because you are the most important employee in your business. And if you're not getting paid, then you need to look at who you're employing because you've probably hired people before you really need them. And then one for your operations expenses. And we can have other ones as well. If you're a product-based business, you might want one for your products so that you're putting money away from every sale to be able to restock your business with the products you need.
And I think one thing that you probably need to add is that when you get paid and you have your, let's say, weekly payment schedules going out, you actually pay in that order. So you start with profit so that you always make money. Then you go to tax and just get that out of your sight because the tax agent or the government needs to be paid. Then you pay yourself your wage and only then you pay your bills. And sometimes people are taught to pay everybody else first, and then they're left with nothing else for themselves. And then they keep doing that for years and years and years. And by the end of the ride, they're about to retire. The business is worth very little because it just isn't really well designed. It's still the diamond in the rough sort of thing. And they never really made money. And now they suddenly have to rely on the government, which is obviously not a pretty sight. So this is why the yin and yang here sitting in front of you, where basically he's the systems man, I'm the sales and marketing man. If you put us both together, you can really start shaping that success diamond.
I love it. And this is a cool concept. And I can see how by separating the money in this way, it simplifies it. And it maybe even like help if you keep doing this on a repeat basis, it kind of even like absorbs into you. And then the idea of paying it out in this specific order, and especially like, getting the tax out of the way as soon as possible. Because like you said, it's not your money, paying yourself first. It probably helps with the confidence, self-esteem as well.
Yeah, and it's working with what we already do. Every business owner checks their bank account at least once a day or once every second day. So telling them to run their business by a profit and loss sheet and a balance sheet, if you're not a numbers person, these things are not the way that you run business. We run it by our bank accounts. We run it by how much cash we've got available. So we've got to lean into that so that we can work with those people.
Wonderful. And so it just seems like maybe if these business owners have been struggling, maybe they just like don't know what they don't know, or they haven't been applying this rule seriously. And money is sort of weird like that, right? It's like if you don't tell your money where to go, it'll just run off on you for something. It's the spookiest thing, right? And so
there's no structure. You gotta make money your slave. You gotta make it your slave. Because otherwise you become
otherwise it's the other way. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, so as you said, you guys have figured out a lot of interesting concepts here. You've changed some lives. You helped some businesses. You're working well together as the yin and yang. What is exciting you about the future? What's the next big event, retreat, or what's the next big project for you?
Well, you go ahead.
I was going to say next year we've got that July
That's it. Well, obviously, we're working towards more events that we host in tropical locations where we bring business owners together to work 4 days in an immersive environment to work really on what's the big thing here? Why are you in business? What are you solving? And how can you build the lifestyle that you want with your business and have an impact in the world? So we're really building that sort of thing up more. But until then, the Profit Freedom Machine is really the vehicle to show people our value in an 8-week sort of sprint where we add the value, start shaping that success diamond together with them. And we're really excited about taking that to the world because we feel that the world is our oyster and there's a lot of people that need our help. So that really gets me pumped. It gets me up early like today. And yeah. What about you?
Yeah, that's the main thing is the Profit Freedom Machine. That's where we see we can help the most people to really start to think differently about how they run their businesses.
Wonderful. And I think that sort of the subtext in our conversation is probably that unfortunately a lot of business owners are not asking these questions, right? They're so busy putting out the fires, dealing with the day-to-day, they're not asking themselves, what's my big idea? What's my purpose? What's my passion? How am I going to change the world? And with having a few things reconfigured, including this 8-week sprint, including going off to this tropical paradise because travel expands the mind, they can think differently, be around other like-minded individuals. Many things can change both physically and mentally and financially. And so how can people find out more about this Profit Freedom Machine and like what's the next step here? What action should they take?
Well, the easiest way is to go to bramlagrou.com/courses. The Profit Freedom Machine is like one of the courses right there. You can just click on it. You then are directed to a webinar that we host live on a regular basis. And that basically gives people a good idea about who we are, how we work, what's basically in that Profit Freedom Machine. Take it from there.
Very cool. So yeah, and so we'll mention that website and we'll also mention the other one in a moment. So just to recap, that is BRAMLAGROU.com/courses. Go there, watch the webinar. It's Profit Freedom Machine. Did you start a business to have plenty of time and money to enjoy life and ended up with only plenty of time and no money, or plenty of money and no time? So click on learn more, watch that webinar. And we also want to plug globalbusinesscoaching.com.au. So Mr. Alan, what's global business coaching and how is that unique?
It's mainly unique from where I come from as a business coach. A lot of business coaches come into coaching as executives that are retrained. And they're wonderful. They bring a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge. Where I come from that's different is I've built a business that works without me. And not only have I built a business, but I still have that business. So, we're growing from $4 million to $5 million over the next 3 years. And that's going to happen with very little input from me, with a couple of hours every day. And so I've got a sandbox that I apply what we teach at Global Business Coaching and how we help people find that freedom that I have so that I can do what I'm passionate about, which is helping other business owners.
And serve along the way, and 4-wheel drive along the way, and a few other things that he likes doing.
Right. have some adventures along life.
Yeah, because life is short and none of us know how much time is left. You could cross the street tomorrow, get hit by a semi-truck, flattened as a pancake, and it's all over. So nothing in life is guaranteed. And so if you're struggling for all these years and decades, hoping to one day in old age, maybe have a few pennies saved up plus some assistance from the government, that's not really a plan. But if we can do some of these hard things, some of these smart things, and be strategic and not go it alone, and that goes as far as our employees and our mentors, such as both of you, then we can accomplish some amazing things, including the surfing and the hobbies and the travel and just helping make the world a better place. And it's time to do it by going to bramlagrou.com/courses and watch that video about the Profit Freedom Machine, and then globalbusinesscoaching.com.au if you are excited and energized about Alan's ideas to build a business that supports your life instead of a business that enslaves you. And so as we're checking out those two websites, URLs, it's time to end our conversation on a kind of a fun note where I like to try to stump both of you and ask about a fun quote or lesson that has helped you, that can help us. So what comes to mind for you guys as far as a fun quote or lesson?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes that I like to talk to people about is information without action is just entertainment.
That's it. And mine would be we all get taught something sometimes really wrong, which is treat people the way that you want to be treated. I just like to really make a point that based on statistics, that data, that you just got to change one word in it and make sure that you treat people the way they want to be treated. As long as you do that, you can get along with anyone and you can get great results.
I love it. Treat them the way they want to be treated. And it seems like that's a recurring theme in our conversation, is that there's just sometimes like little tweaks, little adjustments that need to be made. And what you want to accomplish and what you're doing, it's almost on the right track, but it just needs a little bit of refinement, and you're closer to success than you think. And you need to give yourself a lot of credit for how far you've come and be proud of your accomplishments as you head to globalbusinesscoaching.com.au and bramlagrou.com/courses, however you say it. So wonderful speaking to both of you.
No worries.
Likewise.
Likewise,
It's been a
Robert.
pleasure.